on today's
I
podcast.
think I kind of pity right-wingers because they're so fucking boring.
We shoot guns, don't we? I mean, how are we born?
This is what I call the North Hills liberal. The truth is, adding value will never go out of style. Hello, and thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast. I've got Paul Fitts back for round two here, but today's kind of a special idea that Paul Fitts agreed to jump in with me and talk about. Thanks for joining us again, Paul.
Thanks for having me. I love being here.
So the concept of this came up a couple things. So I don't consume a lot of social media anymore.
Right.
But when I do, of course, like Facebook, for example, it knows the algorithm. It's trying to get me to engage, right? So it'll put these, my words, semi-ridiculous things up here because it knows I'm going to want to engage with that. I'm sure based in 2020 and just over the years, responding to people and debating and discussing things.
Right.
So it's trying to pull me back in, and I have to resist it. And being real honest with you, it's like I see this stuff, and it's like, it's like I have to fight. I don't want to engage in this ridiculous conversation because these people aren't going to engage.
Well, but they've gone from fact checkers now to sheep herders.
Well, that's
so
true.
they're basically shepherding posts over to your social media that normally you would never look at.
Right.
There's some Bernie Sanders icon-led post called Democrat Socialist or whatever showing up on my feed now, and I've never looked at it before. And it's like, oh, okay, now I know why you're here.
Right.
You're the resistance.
Well, there's a couple things. First off, I do believe there's an algorithm in play.
Oh, yeah.
But the other thing is I have to believe, because it's not even the algorithm of things I agree with. It's almost like they're creating these narratives to get people to see. Like I saw something about Donald Trump had to have his desk replaced because Elon Musk's son wiped a booger on it. I mean, why is that showing up in my Facebook feed? And it's, in my opinion, it's designed to undermine
Propaganda.
It's propaganda, and it's designed to undermine how you feel or think about somebody. And so part of this podcast is I don't like texting somebody back and forth on a social media platform discussing an idea. And part of my frustration over the years is I've invited countless people
Right.
that may not agree with me
Differing
on something.
opinions.
I like the differing opinion. I enjoy the discussion.
Love it.
If I think Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback ever, and you think Brett Favre is, I'm curious, how in the world do you think Brett Favre or Pat Mahomes or fill in the blank?
Yeah.
And I want to have a discussion because maybe I'm going to start seeing things your way. Maybe you have data I don't have. But the problem is people that generally don't have a similar opinion to mine, they won't get on video.
No.
They won't talk about something. They don't want to discuss it. They want to blast it. And I've had, I'll just say, liberal for lack of a better word.
Sure.
And when I think of liberal now, I think of a true liberal as a Bill Maher, who I largely agree with what he says most of the time. I disagree with some of the views, obviously.
Well, he's changed his stances to fit what goes on during the narrative of the time. So, in other words, I would never call him a classic liberal, but I would say he's an evolving liberal. Like he was all for the transgender movement until he wasn't.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
oh God. I mean, yeah, he's like, what does it matter? It's not your life. What does it matter? And now he's like, oh, well, you shoved it in their face too hard. I'm like, bro, you didn't stop it. You didn't, give a differing opinion when it became a thing. So his opinion is evolving, but I believe a lot of people who have been classically left over the last decade, maybe a little bit longer, classically left, they're now starting to just slightly shift center, more than they ever have, because they realize how much the country has backlashed based on all of the stuff they've been trying to shove in your face.
Well, and again, I would say that the left has gone so far left that it's left people like the Glenn Greenwalds, the Joe Rogans, like people that are traditionally very left and Democrat voting.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
RFK.
Yeah.
And again, these people saw how ridiculous everything was becoming on the left. And Tulsi Gabbard summed it up, in my opinion, in one of the best ways when she called it a cabal. She was not joking. She's like, no, it's a cabal.
Right.
And I agree. I used to call the left, I used to call it a conglomerate of victimhood, because everything that they'd have, oh, we're just victims.
Right.
They would never have anything that would be a celebration of actual accomplishments.
That's true. So the whole, I guess our foundational way of saying is, so what we're going to do is we're going to take social media posts today. Oof. We're going to take screenshots, videos, and we're going to look at it, listen to it. Our awesome videographer is going to put it on the screen so you can see what we're seeing, and we're going to talk about it.
Okay.
And, anytime I have interacted with people in the past about this, they suddenly disappear.
Of course.
It's like when you point out something that we should all be on the same page about, where'd you go?
Yeah.
Like, how come you stopped responding? And it's like, it is aggravating because it's no different than, like, I will respond to people always on my social media posts.
Sure.
And I've been borderline, let's call it competitive, aggressive, disrespectful, things like that. And over the years, I've really tried to take that edge off because ultimately my goal is what is best for humanity.
See, I'm trying to be like you, but I'm not there yet.
All right. And that's fair. And listen, we all, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but we all should be trying to, do we really want what's best for humanity, or do I want to win the argument? And I've had to really look at things I've said and done. I can own some things where if somebody brought up something I said during 2020, for example,
Right.
Because they believed people should be fired for not taking an experimental shot.
Right.
And maybe that aggravated and I said something I shouldn't have had said. I would say, number one, I was right. Number two, I shouldn't have delivered the message that way. And you were right that I'm out of line communicating that way. And I think we all have to understand that we have to take ownership. We're all humans. We're all fucked up one way or another. And we all should be striving to be a better human.
But it's, I think we're all so emotionally charged that we don't step back, and we should take a logical approach to how we interact with people. But it gets difficult when they're not wanting to listen to factual data or anything that has anything to do with reality. It's my emotions are based on this, my feelings are based on this, and I'm going to ride on this until I'm dead.
Yep. No, I agree. It's frustrating. And that's why, they get frustrated as well, because we're not seeing their worldview, even though we may be presenting
Why aren't
data.
we empathetic with them?
So, I think a side note would be, let's all try to communicate in a more effective way.
An adult way?
Let's keep humanity the priority and what's best for humanity in general. And so let's all start there, and let's own it if we don't.
Right.
Because we're all human. All right. So the first one we're going to look at is a post that was shared from someone I know who Robert Slager apparently, I don't know if he created this or shared it, but believing that a small group of billionaires are suddenly working tirelessly for the benefit of the working class really does require a spectacular level of stupid. And so I'll start off here, Paul.
Go ahead.
I do believe that Donald Trump is working on behalf of America and citizens. And so this post is basically calling me stupid. I do believe that Elon Musk is charged up enough that he's doing this for the betterment of humanity. So this is calling me stupid. And so this guy, Robert, or this person that shared it, which I'll leave her name off.
Leave it alone.
Number one, they probably wouldn't have the guts to sit in that chair and discuss it. So,
which is a shame.
Yeah.
Do you truly believe this? Sit here.
Right. And that's where, generally speaking, I don't believe people do actually believe it. To me, this is propaganda.
Yeah.
Because the second Elon Musk bought Twitter, I told a handful of people, I said, they're going to give him the Donald Trump treatment. They're going to be crucifying him all over media.
Oh, yeah.
And it's 100% accurate.
But Elon was one of them at one time.
Right. He voted for Joe Biden in 2020.
Elon was Mr. Environment, and he was all about the left movement.
Right.
But I will tell you, I personally believe The day that it all changed for Elon Musk was the day that he went to Washington, D.C. to hand them an $11 billion check for his 2021 taxes. When he handed that $11 billion check, Elon Musk turned around and looked at his account and said, where the hell is that money going? I need to know. If I'm giving them $11 billion, where is that money going?
He's investing in the country.
Right.
So as an investor, he has a right to know, like we all do. We're all
Correct.
citizens.
That was the biggest check that any individual has ever given the United States at any particular time.
Yeah.
So when he's asking the questions, and I think the fact that they are unwilling to answer those questions, there was no transparency. There's all of a sudden he's being scrutinized because of all this. I think that was the day that it changed for Elon Musk. Now, is he still donating his time to be there? He 100% is, because he's invested more money than anybody who's saying anything against him right now. Anybody who's saying a thing against Elon Musk, they haven't delivered an $11 billion check to the United States IRS.
Right.
Ever.
Right.
So therefore, since he is invested, he has every right to ask questions.
Well, as we all do.
100%.
And I think that, number one, this kind of content is designed to demonize those people. It's propaganda. The other thing I would say is there are countless examples of multimillionaires and billionaires giving back hundreds upon billions, whether it's Dale Carnegie, whether it's Rockefeller, whether it's, we were just talking Warren Buffett plans on giving away a majority of his fortune.
He's not going to give it to his kids. He said he's literally going to give the majority of his fortune away.
So to think
He must be an idiot, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. This is propaganda.
Yeah.
And it's not stupid for me to say that I can point out plenty of billionaires that have done this.
Right.
And there's two ways you give. There's time and money, right? I mean, that's ultimately what you do. And so it's not surprising to me that there are plenty of successful people that are invested in seeing a healthy United States
Right.
if you care about people. And so here's the thing. If you don't care about people, because I've had people tell me before, why do you talk about this stuff, Brian? Like you own a business and blah, 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 and you do alienate some, because people matter.
Yeah.
And what's so funny is, to me, the opposite of this is true. If I wasn't talking about this stuff, I'm selfish in my moral compass.
Right.
But things are important enough, like when people were getting laid off for not taking jabs, or statistics about, I mean, COVID kind of brought a lot of this stuff up. So I just think that critical thinking seems to be at an all-time low for a lot of people.
Sure.
And so I think as a critical thinker, you can look at situations and I don't know, it's pretty clear a lot of the time.
Well, just consider how many people on Biden's secretary positions, how many of them did their job without taking a salary? How many people on Obama's secretary positions, how many of those guys did it without taking a salary? And I'm pretty sure we're not just going to see it from Trump, but we're probably going to see it from other people who are in secretary positions. I think Linda McMahon even said that she wasn't going to take a salary to do what she's doing. Now, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen it come across yet.
Sure.
But again, how many of those people in the last 4 years in those positions took no salary to do the right thing? I'm a comic book guy. You know that. If you always look at the first line of a Spider-Man comic book, it'll tell you, with great power comes great responsibility. I think right now, Trump and Musk, and of course, if Linda McMahon is in that position, then they already have their great power. They're now using it in a responsibility manner where they want to guide the country in a better position. We're not willing to take a dime to do it. I think that speaks more volumes than anything else. So.
Yeah. For the richest, one of the richest men in the world, I actually don't believe Elon's probably the richest. Probably some not. Saudi,
some oil prince,
off the radar kind of guy's probably the richest. But as one of the richest people on the planet, like, what do I need to take money for?
Nah.
If you listen to people's message, I think this is the other thing. If you listen to Donald Trump from the early 80s,
right,
in the mid 80s, in the 90s.
You mean when Oprah was interviewing him those days? Yeah.
Oh, he was a hero back then. And The View was even praising Donald Trump and asking him to run for president, which is just fascinating. But like Barbara Walters, I think it was, in the early 80s, talking about encouraging him to run for president because he was a Democrat, number one. But the other thing about it was he was saying the same things.
He hasn't
He
changed since.
loves his country. He loves America. He loves freedom. So it doesn't surprise me that somebody like that would donate his salary. And here's the other thing. If these people have some kind of data showing how Elon is milking the system or
love to see it,
Trump,
yeah.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, I'd love to see
I'd
it.
love to see it.
Yeah.
My guess is you don't have anything.
No, their definition of stealing means that he's stopping them from stealing. And to them, that's stealing.
Sure.
So therefore, Elon's going to steal all this money from us and blah, blah, blah. No. He's just stopping you from putting it into places where it doesn't belong.
Sure.
Therefore, in their mind, the new definition of stealing is he's keeping it from us so we can distribute the money how we see fit.
Well, listen, it makes perfect sense that a lot of politicians don't like Musk.
Of
That makes
course.
perfect sense
Sure.
to me because they're the ones milking the system.
Right. But they have followers who will follow them no matter what. You know, AOC has followers who will follow her no matter what. They don't want to analyze the data.
Right.
They don't want to sit here and say, well, maybe she's mistaken. No, they'll just take whatever words come out of her mouth and they will use that as gospel to, perpetuate whatever she wants to put in place.
Right. And those are the people that, again, I'm just encouraging you to think.
Yeah.
Just think. And it's not that we're right about everything, but
No.
we're open to data. We're open to maybe you don't change. I always said this, maybe someone doesn't change me 180 degrees, but maybe they move me 10 degrees.
The ability to be a critical thinker always allows you to at least say, what if? Maybe that's not right. Maybe we should look at. But when people want to just buy into a narrative, they're locked in. They don't ever want to ask what if beyond that.
Right.
That means that they don't have the ability to have the critical thought to do that.
And here's what I would also say is that, as I get older, one of the things I try to do is lower my ego. My opinion is not me. That's not my soul. So I'm detached from a lot of my opinions now, whereas I think it's easy to be attached to that opinion and that identity. This is me.
Right.
And, my opinion about Elon Musk right now, it's subject to change.
Yeah.
My opinion about Mitt Romney in 2011 is
Right.
completely different than
Different.
it is now. I think had we got Mitt Romney, it would have been the same thing as Obama.
I think Mitt Romney's opinion of Mitt Romney is completely different.
But that's the thing. It's okay to be open to data,
Right.
Right. And I can't stand that guy now.
Oh, I voted for him.
Oh,
I voted for him.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So, moving on to number 2. I'll let you start with this one. The Pentagon's $35 trillion accounting hole. This is an article that was written in 2020 on Yahoo Finance, so it's probably even bigger now. Obviously the Pentagon hasn't passed an audit in forever.
They don't have to.
Right.
When's the last time anybody held the Pentagon accountable for anything?
So what's amazing is the country has roughly a $36 trillion
Kind of
debt.
strange.
And this is right in line with our black hole of unaccountability.
Man, again.
What are your thoughts on this?
No, we can go down the list, and I don't get me wrong when I say this. I hate that they're solely picking on the Pentagon with this article. In my opinion, I couldn't name a government entity right now that would pass an audit. There's just no possible way that's education, EPA, energy. You can go down the list. Who's really going to pass an audit? Now, I admit, $35 trillion
It's not a
is a
drop in the bucket.
miss.
Yeah.
What is our nation's debt at? 36 trillion?
roughly, yeah.
And again, it's kind of weird how both numbers are mirrored towards each other. But if the money is not there at the Pentagon, if it's not in our defense, where the hell is it at?
Well, what's amazing to me is that, where's it at?
Where's it at?
It's a great question. I think that, anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far,
You
but
sure?
yeah, I do. I'll just say this real quick because that was my first thought, is that like when there was the soft coup against the sitting president, Joe Biden, which in my opinion, that was definitely a coup.
That was something else, wasn't it?
Where they just booted him because it was because they couldn't conceal the fact he was incoherent anymore. That's why it happened, number one. So they were lying to the public, saying how sharp he was 3 weeks before they booted him.
Right.
So in my opinion, there was a soft coup. You know, everybody found out he wasn't going to rerun from a Twitter,
Right.
which he, of course, doesn't control himself.
Right. I still have the screenshot of him signing that document. I'm like, okay, that's legit.
Yeah. And then you didn't hear from him from days.
No.
And what was wild is like, everybody was speculating, like, what the fuck is going on here?
I mean, who was fighting it the most though? Was it Jill Biden? Was she the one fighting?
Probably. Well, she did wear red when she. Do you think off topic? Do you think Jill Biden voted for Trump?
Oh, she probably
wore a red dress.
She probably abstained from voting. She probably couldn't vote for Trump, but she damn sure didn't vote for Kamala.
She wore a red dress.
It's a good segue on that. But
and the other last thing I'll say on that,
Yeah.
and when Trump was at the White House, I've never seen Joe Biden so happy. His smile was literally ear to ear. It had the
Right.
Kool-Aid. Now that was either ego, like he was trying to cover it up because he couldn't stand Donald Trump being there, or it was like, hey, you booted me, and now you guys got Trump.
No, this is Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden's mentality. Okay, I'm 1-0 against you, Donald.
I believe
that's
it.
his mentality.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't care if Hillary and Kamala lost to you, I won. That's his only mentality. Joe Biden has.
All right, another rabbit hole. Speaking of one, so I've asked a few of my friends this. I said, the most votes in history, according to, let's say, Google right now,
2020.
Joe Biden, 2020. And so he outdid Barack Obama, a black man,
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton, a woman, and Kamala, a woman of color. So the Democratic Party had an extra 13 million votes for either a white man.
Yeah, a white man.
So it's either
Yeah.
the Democrat Party's either kind of a misogynistic or racist, or there was voter fraud.
Well, remember now they just had their convention, and they said that the biggest problem in this country was misogyny and racism, and they elect two white guys to basically run the party now. And I'm like, well, I'm getting mixed signals from you guys. Is it misogyny and racism, or is it not? And it's funny, since 2024, since the election has been over in 2024, and I ran for mayor here in the city of Raleigh. And since that race, I will tell you, I have had so much interaction with black Democrats during this period of time because we had a black candidate on the GOP for the highest, sitting position in the state. We had Mark Robinson running for governor. They had Josh Stein. Number 2, they had Rachel Hunt. So their positions are 1 and 2 white people. And now the Democrat Party here in the state, they are now saying that we need to relook at what we're doing, because we say that we're about people of color, and yet we didn't do anything to promote people of color into those positions. They had 4 other candidates in the governor's, on the Democrat governor's side, that were all black candidates. So if you're talking to me and you're telling me that you want to embolden races in your party, and yet you put on literally the poster child of white privilege as now the governor of the state, you're being completely hypocritical on your message. And I think the Democrat Party has now started to say we can't talk about racism, misogyny. We could keep putting these white guys in these positions. So that was the whole thing about the DNC convention not too long ago that kind of floored me.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, back to the Pentagon here.
I know, right? We can rabbit hole.
And I would say that number one, this is disgusting to me as a business owner that has to account for everything that I do.
You'd be shut down.
And it's not just the size of the organization. You could
Right.
take a Microsoft, Apple. You could take any of these large companies, Tesla. You could take any of these large companies. They have their books matching.
Name an entity that would survive any kind of, not just trillion, let's just say Walmart. Walmart comes up and they're missing $400 million. Somebody's going to answer to that.
Somebody's going to jail.
Yeah, exactly. That is nothing but embezzlement. It's fraud.
And so, number one, I think this there's two thoughts I have about this. Number one, that from my point of view, there's a culture of unaccountability in our government, and that's fundamentally one of the big problems with government in general is the unaccountability to the taxpayer.
Right.
This is unacceptable. I don't care who's running it.
No.
If it's Trump, if it's Obama, I don't give a fuck who's running it.
Right.
I want things to account. Now, the other person that might look at this and say, well, we got black budgets and blah, 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 and that's why it's unaccounted for. Well, that doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work for me anymore. It's have the bucket of black budget.
Right.
Make that a line item.
Or just tell me the money went to CIA. I don't care what the CIA spent it on. Just make sure they're accountable for it.
Well, you do care what they spend.
at the end of it,
you do.
Yeah.
We do care what it's spent on, and I think those things are coming to light as well right now.
Right.
But I just think that this is unacceptable. I don't care who the party is. And the other thing is that's baffling to me is someone will piss and moan on social media about Trump spending $10 million on
I saw it. Yeah.
$10 million in golfing, which I'm not saying did happen or didn't happen because I haven't taken the time to look into it.
Right.
Let's say that he did, okay? Let's say that he spent $10 million golfing. If you're upset about that, how much did Biden spend on vacations to the beach? With those same analytics that you came up with the $10 million.
577 days on vacation.
Well, it was
in
like
a 4-year period.
It was like his third of his presidency or something,
Yeah.
I read.
Like 38% of his presidency was vacation.
So not to go too far off topic, is that if you're mad about Trump spending $10 million on golf,
Right.
let's say, which I'm guessing $10 million on golf is Secret Service expense and all these other things associated with.
Yeah.
Let's say that I would rather not have a president because that's 30 days,
Right.
$10 million, that's $360 million a year. Yeah, that's actually a little, that I don't want to see that as a
Right.
taxpayer. But if you're mad about that, you sure as fuck should be mad about the $2 billion that went to, I'm jumping ahead on something. Let me, you sure should be mad about Obama flying his daughters to Mexico
yeah.
on private Lear jets. And it was $2-3 million that trip was
Yeah.
for his daughters to go on vacation
Right.
with their friends.
Right.
And again, we've been paying attention to politics long enough to remember that.
Yeah, of course.
That was a story for me
Yep.
when they were demonizing Mitt Romney, the douche Mitt Romney.
It's different. Just ask them. Everything is different.
So here's the thing.
There's no correlation.
I'm going to challenge anybody listening to this. If you get mad about one, get mad about the other.
Right.
Start removing the political glasses.
Sure.
We'll all be better off. Call a spade, become more of an umpire, calling balls and strikes
Right.
versus on one of the teams.
Right.
Because the reality is, I think Mitch McConnell's as big of a problem with this country.
100%.
Or Lindsey Graham.
100%.
Or Paul Ryan I used to like. I can't stand him anymore.
Yep.
Mitt Romney's kind of the same. So there's a lot of these guys that the way I see it now, it's not Republicans against Democrats. It's the machine and the elites that are embedded in this deep state blob cabal.
I call them career parasites. That's what they are. They are not producing anything for this nation. They are simply taking from it. And the only time they get mad is when they realize that part of their pie is going to stop becoming part of their expenditures at that point.
Right.
Again, you can go down the list and you'll see it. And I know so many people who are on the left or who have TDS, they're not going to look at all the findings that Elon Musk comes up with. They're not going to do, I refuse to look at it.
Right.
But if they want to get mad about the $10 million that Trump spent on a golf outing, then why aren't they mad at the $1 trillion that Elon is finding in wasteful spending that nobody in a 4-year period of time found on Biden's balance sheet?
Right.
Nobody found any wasteful spending in 4 years with Joe Biden's presidency.
Right.
But we're going to get mad about the $10 million. We're not going to be happy about the $1 trillion that we find in savings. Hey, what is that? That's 1%. Trump deserves a golf trip off the 1%.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that case too if that's
Right?
the case, right? Especially for a guy that's not drawing a salary.
Actually, that's 0.1%. Sorry.
Right. Right now, it truly is information overload.
Yeah.
And so what I would encourage anybody to do is find good sources that break each one of these down, to where I love Mike Benz. That
Right.
guy has been spot on about absolutely everything.
Right.
And when you listen to him, that's a credible source. If you listen to Rachel Maddow, for example, I can give you countless examples of where she's completely wrong.
How about Leslie Stahl? Let's just go back to 2020.
Is that 60 Minutes with
60
the
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's just go back to 2020 or 60 Minutes, back to the year 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And she's interviewing Trump and he's talking about the Hunter Biden
Biden.
laptop and the Biden corruptions. And she's like, sir, there's no evidence of that. Oh, okay. So maybe she didn't see it at that time. Maybe nobody had handed it to her at that time. She's had 4 years to come out with a retraction or 4 years to come out with an apology.
Right.
Because if I'm wrong, and I hate doing it, I hate
We all do.
admitting that I'm wrong.
We all do.
I hate saying, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Right.
I hate doing it because, I always, everybody likes to be right.
Sure.
Everybody likes to have
course.
that emotional feeling of being right. But if you want me to take you seriously as
Mm-hmm.
a news professional and you were wrong, why can't you say that? Why can't you do that?
Right. She was calling out Trump during an election year.
Telling
that
him
Hunter
he was
Biden,
wrong.
There's no way that can be verified.
not true.
When the FBI already had it.
Right. Oh, there's no evidence. She said there's
Yeah.
no evidence of that. Oh, there's not. Well, there's plenty of it because
Right.
Hunter Biden has been convicted of a crime based on the information found from that laptop, and we still haven't heard from Leslie Stahl.
Right.
Not one time.
Well, and so coming back to credible sources, now you see the 60 Minutes completely re-edited
Oh.
Kamala Harris's interview. I mean, it was a complete train wreck, and they spiced it up the best they could. Here's the thing.
That's some polish.
60 Minutes has no credibility with me anymore. They are an arm.
Zero.
They are a propaganda network.
Zero.
With just those two examples, I don't ever listen to that shit again.
No.
And so I used to think highly of 60 Minutes.
sure.
But they're a joke now. They're a propaganda. They may as well be Baghdad Bob
Right.
running that thing.
It's
if
no
you're
different.
old enough to remember Baghdad Bob during the Gulf War.
So did you actually
Mustafa,
watch?
hang on. Mustafa, you know who Baghdad Bob is?
Yeah, that was the I think that was the media head of like the Saddam regime.
Yeah. So just to explain,
Yep.
Mustafa is anybody who hasn't watched this before. Mustafa is from Iraq, grew up in Iraq, and
I thought
so
you were
anyway,
from Wendell.
yeah. So Baghdad Bob, I remember as a kid. I mean, this was like 1990 or something like that. I'm 16 at the time.
Yep.
And I remember our media making fun of Baghdad Bob, saying how great the Iraqi army was doing and the U.S. forces.
crushed.
Meanwhile, Iraq was getting hammered by the United States at the time, just demolished. But Baghdad Bob was propping up to the Iraqi because they wanted to keep them out there fighting, keep morale up. And at a point, I think the reason why I bring this up, I think there's a lot of Baghdad Bobs in the United States media to where it's all crumbling down around them, and they're saying they're still putting it out like they're winning,
Yeah.
and they're just getting demolished left and right.
I don't want to take the time, but Baghdad Bob actually, ironically, was pardoned by the U.S. and now he lives in UAE.
Really?
That makes
Okay.
sense. That's interesting.
Hey, I'll give props. Schwarzkopf during that period of time, he was using the media to tell them disinformation. They were blasting out to everybody. And when he didn't strike where they thought he was going to strike and he struck somewhere else, they would call. They're like, well, you told us. They're like, yeah, I know why I'm using you. And they didn't even get it.
Yeah, I do like me some Norman.
But your point, again, when we talk about credible sources of media, we have people on the left constantly just saying, cite your source. Oh, where's the link? Like, you can research it too.
Right.
Don't make me do the work for you just because you're lazy. If
Right.
you can't do the work, you don't even deserve to be in this conversation.
Right.
You actually have to bring something that is credible on your side versus the propaganda wing, which has been CBS, NBC, MSNBC, ABC. Literally, the propaganda source for the leftists for the last 40 plus years has been the legacy media.
Well, and again, it makes you wonder. Now, I don't necessarily have total proof of this yet, but I think it's coming out that we know USAID has funded media sources. 90% of the media in Ukraine
Right.
was basically propaganda
They have
for the
funded
United
other
States.
sources throughout the world.
We
yes.
funded all throughout the world, and I think I believe the big bomb that's going to come in the future is how this money it's made its way back into the United States
Well, but again, if you're
to prop all this stuff up.
if you're thinking that USAID is part of the reason why they kept the media sources going. It's like saying, hey, I still want money from my advertiser. Therefore, I'm not going to talk bad about my advertiser while they advertise with me.
Absolutely.
It is the same message.
Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to say anything bad about iWatch Security if iWatch Security is paying money on your radio station for ads every week.
Right.
You're just not going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what they've done.
And that's common sense.
Yeah.
And that's where, anyway, not to go too far down that hole, but yeah, there's so much information coming out right now. It's just wild, which is a good thing.
How about Epstein's list? How
Get
about
it out.
that?
Yeah. Bondi said it's sitting on her desk. I'm hoping to see all that data.
Sitting on her desk.
Right.
Now, did Merrick Garland have 4 years to have that information sitting on his desk?
Sure.
Why didn't it get there?
Well, I know what they would say. That's an ongoing investigation.
Well,
So it would be ongoing for the next 80 years until we're all dead.
if she mentions that she has that information on her desk, is she compromising the ongoing investigation at this point?
I'm sure that's whatever they release is not going to compromise whatever's going on, would be my guess.
But I would have more confidence in my my U.S. Attorney General's office if over the last 4 years they had the exact same information.
You can't release anything.
Yeah, nothing
There are no arrests.
for anybody. Giselle Bundchen, she was the not Giselle, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell. She's been the only arrest in the entire time. Is that right?
Yeah, supposedly.
And here we are 4 years later, 4 years after Epstein hung himself, and the general public has no real knowledge of what was on that list. And we can speculate.
Well, and to me, it's super easy to speculate as far as why we wouldn't be doing that, or how did Jeffrey Epstein get all this money, and where does all this trillions go? Probably towards operations to compromise people. And
they've done a great job.
And listen, that stuff is probably coming out.
Right.
Maybe it's even compromising presidents that flew on the Lolita to get them to do what they want to do.
Or
former presidents,
right.
or princes, or who else.
These guys are all power brokers.
Right.
They're all power brokers. So all they did was just they put them in the compromising place where they need to be. Now they have all the power over them. But the truth is, the American public has funded it.
Right.
And we need to know why, and we need to know who.
Right. And it's, in my opinion, it's probably out of control, and it's probably made its way into deep and dark crevices, violating our rights. Obviously, we already know Americans have been censored, and censorship is here.
Yeah.
Lawfare is here. USAID has clearly been involved, and I'm saying USAID.
Right.
Countless government agencies and fronts for, the military-industrial complex have been involved with lawfare in other countries and all this stuff, overturning governments. CIA's been in trouble in the 40s or 50s for literally executing, shooting leaders of other countries.
Right.
This stuff is not acceptable.
Right.
But anyway.
Bring it to the light of day. And just like what you said about censorship, who was it? It was last week, Sunday, on CBS, where whether she's a reporter, a presenter, whatever they call her now, they said they stopped calling her a reporter for whatever reason. She said that the reason why Germany got away with killing Jews or rounding them up is because they had free speech.
Ridiculous.
They had free speech. It is the complete opposite of that, because that was state-run media. There was only one narrative that was even given at the time. And so when you have state-run media or when you have censorship, you're not saving anybody at that point. Mm-hmm. You're condemning them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. To me, that just shows the propaganda.
Right.
They're trying to twist people's minds to say free speech is a bad thing. No, free speech is always a good thing.
Save you.
You should have been able to say, hey, are we really targeting these people because of their ethnicity?
Right.
This is wrong.
Right.
That should have been able to be said.
It was the same narrative could have been said over a year ago when you go to New York City or Columbia campus and they're out there protesting against the Jewish population. That to me was the exact same thing that the Nazis were doing in the
Absolutely.
1930s. And therefore, that to me is what happens when you don't have free speech, when you censor it, and when you put this narrative in place. Now you are demonizing, a people or a race at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And listen, there's a difference of disagreeing what the state of Israel is doing versus
Sure.
Jewish people.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
Oh, of course. Hey,
Yeah.
you know, take it down to the city of Raleigh. Again, I attended a city council meeting recently, and during the city council meeting, there were people there again talking about ceasefire agreements between Israel and Hamas, and they want the city council to put it out there. You need a ceasefire agreement. If the Raleigh City Council were to put one in place, do you think the combatants on either side in either territory would care if the city?
Nothing.
It means nothing.
City of Raleigh should be worrying about the city of Raleigh.
City of Raleigh issues. There are potholes. Fix the potholes.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to breeze through a couple of these things, and I'm going to acknowledge Paul Fitz was right before we started here. I gave Paul a list of things, and Paul's like, "What are we doing? 3 hours today?" And I'm like, "Nah, we'll breeze through these." And here we are on our third one here. So you were right, I was wrong. See, that's humility. Credit card debt hits. Here we go, Mustafa. I'm looking at my phone. All right.
Yeah. You got to have the photo op.
Credit card debt hits a record $1.2 trillion.
Yeah.
Now, the thing I look at when I see this, number one, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's really bad.
So to me, this is saying there's a coming calamity. I saw something about mortgage rates or defaults on mortgages are climbing and things like that again.
Yeah.
But when I look at this, it was going down in 2019.
Yeah.
It was going down in 2020.
Yeah.
And it literally bottoms out at 2021.
Yeah.
At the beginning of 2021.
Shocker.
And again, the data is the data. And then it skyrockets over the next 4 years. Now, inflation was obviously terrible over the last 4 years.
Well, but there's a reason behind that.
And there is. And we printed off a shit ton of money.
Right.
So,
and the government spent a shit ton of money.
Right.
Yeah.
And the citizens got a little fraction of that.
Everybody else's citizenry got something out of it.
Right.
We didn't get diddly.
So here's the thing. Consumers are hurting.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're listening to this, get away from the credit cards. Start paying down the debt. This bill is coming due and people are going to be in trouble. And this is going to impact, to me, this is if we could go back in time and look at the 2007 housing crisis,
right.
This is brewing. This is a problem. People need to stop spending money, stop going out, start looking for ways to cut your bills.
Right.
This is a problem, consumers. And if you're a business owner, this is a problem. People are going to stop spending money in your products and services if they can't pay their basic bills.
So, the Fed has all of these different matrices that they look at and they talk about, oh, well, the consumer is still out there, right? And they will say that continuously. The economy is still strong because the consumer is out there. All right, yes, that means people are purchasing. That's all that statement means. The problem is they weren't purchasing from checking and savings. They were purchasing using credit cards. And the debt is worse. This is an all-time high debt.
Right.
All-time high. Now, there's some good news because Trump and Musk both agree that credit card interest rates should be capped.
Trump and who? Musk?
Trump and Musk both agree that credit card interest rates should be capped.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever really read the whole APR thing on a credit card. No, pay mine off. I don't care. So they have a intermittent period of what your interest rates will be, and then bam, if you don't do X and Y or you don't bring it down to a certain point, then it goes to 27% interest rate on credit card. That is loan sharking at its finest. That is legal loan sharking at its finest. So I believe that Trump and Musk will be able to at least bring down and cap what banks and other entities will do on credit card interest.
You're pissing a lot of people off when you're saying Musk.
Why?
He's
Elon Musk?
unelected. That's one of my other memes coming up.
But they're both they're both kind of agreeing because it's hard to have that conversation with Jerome Powell because Jerome Powell is an unelected person, by the way. But Jerome Powell only goes off what he researches on his data points only, and that's it. If I were in that administration right now, I wouldn't say fire Jerome Powell, but I would change his direction on what he's doing for the economy. Instead of talking about lowering Fed funds rates or lowering the interest rates, they should talk about another QE and buy bonds. If they were buying bonds, that would lower interest rates overall for everybody.
Well, I'm out of my area of expertise
Sorry.
talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's like, I think we can agree, and everybody should be able to agree that capping, other than obviously credit card companies
Right.
and banks, but capping a credit card APR at, let's say 22 or 19% or something like that, 19.9%.
Right.
Capping it is going to help a lot of people.
Ton of people.
So here's the thing. If you're in Congress,
Yeah.
because again, Congress makes laws, that's their job,
Every
right?
day, yep.
So you ought to be proposing this bill. And who opposes this? It's going to be the credit card shills, the banking shills, the people,
Who's their lobbyists?
their lobbyists, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
proposing something like this that everybody should be able to get behind, this is a winner.
Yeah.
Propose it.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Car loans are the same thing, man. Car loans can go up to 27, 28. It's the same thing as a
too
credit.
much.
It's too much. And I know people are always focused on what's my monthly payment on this car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're buying a $15,000 car with a 27% interest rate. That's why your payment is $600.
Pay 30 grand for that thing.
Exactly. That's right. It's insane.
So the other thing that strikes that I can't help but notice, like we were told for 4 years how good the economy was. And so if I'm looking at this, that doesn't look like a good economy to me.
People were living off their credit cards for the last 4 years. They've been supplementing their purchase power and not using their checking and savings. They've been using credit cards to live off of for the last 4 years.
And part of that is inflation, which is mostly caused by government printing cash.
Right. That is not a sign of a strong economy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And now the other side of this that I'll say that probably included in these numbers, just to be fair, is somebody like me who I spend probably close to $100,000 a month on credit cards.
Right.
And they all get paid off. I never pay interest on any of my credit cards. And that includes my business as well.
course,
I'm not
yeah.
rolling like
No,
that
no,
personally. But so that being said,
Right.
that's probably calculated in this number as well, if I had to guess.
Yes, a lot of businesses do the same practice that you're talking about. They do it so they can build up points for flights or whatever they want to build up points for. And I get it because that's how they
Convenience too, tracking your expenses.
Correct. They are tracking their expenses on all of it. But if you want to say what that actually comes down to as far as the American public concerned, I mean, again, you can call it the 80-20 rule all live long day. 80% of that debt that we're seeing right now is the American public trying to stay alive in a high inflation environment.
I do believe that's probably the case without the data.
Yeah.
Right. I believe that's probably the case.
Yep.
Next slide.
I will tell you though, that will lead to a lot of bankruptcies coming up.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is I'm raising the alarm.
Right.
To me, it's the Bush administration. I remember was talking to Barney Frank.
Oh Lord.
Before Freddie and
2006.
Fannie and
There's no
Barney.
problem. There's no problem with
Yeah,
Freddie.
Barney Frank. There's no problem. There's no problem. And it's like they were trying to warn the whatever Barney Frank did.
No, well, so yeah, and you're right because it was 2006, and it was the video can be found. They were on the congressional floor,
Yeah.
and there were several Republican Congress members saying there's a problem at Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and Barney Frank adamantly saying there's no problem with Freddie, there's no problem with Fannie. I'm sorry, it was a bad impersonation of him, but still, he was defending the entities that were having problems at that time, and the greatest sin of any of that was going into the Obama presidency when Chris Dodd and Barney Frank got to write the Dodd-Frank laws on financing. And I'm like, and this dude was denying the problems that were
Right.
going on with financing at the time.
Right.
I'm like, you want to talk about the greatest denier, it would be Barney Frank.
Yeah.
So
But that's a whole nother. It's so easy to go down the rabbit hole on any one of these topics.
Well, but you wouldn't have had subprime mortgages had Bill Clinton not tweaked the Community Reinvestment Act.
Right.
They never talk about that as a factor in all of this.
Well, the well-intentioned maybe well-intentioned policies that
Right.
ended up when we could talk about DEI in the same
Right.
context. Well-intentioned policies,
Right.
you put people in the front of a cockpit of a plane because they're a female and this and that, and they crash the plane.
Right.
And maybe they were competent, but maybe they shouldn't have been flying planes. Maybe we should be rewarding competence
experience,
and competence.
yeah, competence, achievement,
Right.
accomplishment. Make sure that person is flying my plane.
Right.
I don't care what they look like.
Right.
I don't even go up to the front to check. Hey, who's flying the plane? I don't even look. But for the love of God, I want to know that they've got 30,000 man hours behind a simulator or something, whatever it takes to get me safely
Competence.
to where I need to be. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's well-intentioned policies that have negative side effects, and we have to be able to have conversations about what caused the problems,
Right.
And hopefully learn from them.
I was going to say, how do we prevent this from ever happening again?
Right.
Let's just not talk about the effect. Let's talk about all the causes that got us there.
Right.
Yeah.
U.S. homes. Next slide.
Yeah. You see
U.S.
that?
home. U.S. Pose here. U.S. home sales in 2024 fell to lowest level in nearly 30 years. My first thought here, Paul, is I go right back to looking around 2008, and we're right there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, you don't hear this being talked about.
You're speaking to a mortgage lender.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm broke. Can I have a job?
You don't want the security industry telling me. So, I mean, I haven't really heard this being talked about because they want to tell you how great it was in 23 and 24. This, when I first saw this the other day, because this was January 24th, 2025, this is scary.
It's legit too. I mean, literally over the last year, one of my worst in the last 10 years of being a mortgage lender. But the good news for me is I've always been very, thrifty and sound with my money.
Sure.
So I'm not ready to, put my wife out on the street and sell pictures of her feet yet or anything like that. But still, it's when you see it industry wide.
Yeah.
I mean, it should be a red flag to people, but you want to talk about that as a news issue. Why isn't it talked about in the media at all?
Right.
I don't see anybody in the media talking about the slide in home sales.
From what I can tell, this is crisis.
It's not good.
Right.
I will tell you that there are other factors involved that are going to come up, that are going to come to light. Remember, during the Biden's administration, we had millions of people crossing our border.
Right.
And when you have, 10, whatever the number is, what do you want to use as a base?
20 million.
You want to say 20? Yeah, 20 million
I've
people.
heard 30. I've heard 10.
I've heard
Let's say
crazy
20.
numbers.
Yeah.
Right. So, let's just say 15. I'll cut the middle. Let's say 15 million people have been introduced into your ecosystem that were not there before. Do you think bread is going to be cheaper because of that? Do you think milk is going to be cheaper?
Housing
Eggs
is going to go up.
Housing.
Right.
It affects everything. It is a totality. And the fact that people do not understand how the crisis of the influx of humans into our ecosystem has caused a housing crisis.
Right.
It baffles me that they don't have any understanding at all at how the economy actually works.
That's true. It's supply and demand.
Simple.
If everybody wants a Cabbage Patch doll, the price is going up.
Jacking up. You find that doll on eBay. You bought it for $35 because you were there at 4:00 in the morning. You got there before everybody else.
Right.
You put it on eBay that day. You get $180.
And I know we're dating ourselves. I mean, I just couldn't think of a better, more recent thing.
It's. I'm not into toys that much, so
Right.
yeah.
So it's supply and demand. The more in demand something is,
Correct.
or in the less of it there is, the more valuable it becomes. This George St. Pierre, this is the shirt he wore
Right.
when he won his last fight in the UFC.
So there's only one of those.
It's a one of a kind.
There's only one. And if
It's a one of a
somebody
kind.
wants that shirt from you,
I name my price. If you don't
Yeah.
like it, too bad. There's one.
And it's okay. I got it.
Right.
I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's supply and demand. I get to name my price.
Right. I think that, and I hate to say this, and I know people are going to look at us sideways when I think that deportations are going to help. And I know that's like, oh my God, that is horrible to say. No, it's supply and demand. We have people in our ecosystem that shouldn't have been here to start with. And therefore, they're going to go back. And as they do, they actually alleviate the supply pressure just a little bit, which may bring prices down, may bring interest rate down, may bring price on milk down. We can go down the list. So,
Yeah. Well, if I had my 2 cents, I would keep all the Latin women here, just for the record. But I'm not in a policy making position.
Wow.
So we'll go on to
The comments made today.
So next topic, and this one is near and dear to my heart. Now, I think the gold bars thing here, $2 billion in gold bars sent to EPA to Abrams Linked Climate Organization, Lee Zeldin. So the gold bars, I think, is just kind of a shock therapy, but ultimately the EPA awarded this organization, I say organization very loosely, in 2024 under Biden, $2 billion. Now, here's the thing. If you go to Forward Community, I should know this. I'm going to look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, sure.
I looked up the website. This is like literally like a $6 website. It's got one page. There's nothing. And we awarded this organization $2 billion. Now, keep in mind, this is right around the time frame that Maui got hit, North Carolina got hit, like all these communities
these entities
with no money and some no-name
climate
line item
Yeah.
in our federal budget got $2 billion from, by the way, to an election denier.
Right. Because
I thought election denying was
because
terrible.
Kemp didn't win.
Right.
She officially won. Ask her; she'll tell you.
Yep.
So you're right, though. When you talk about accountability, this is an entity that needs to be held accountable. The fact that we gave them $2 billion is absurd to start with.
unbelievable.
It's absurd. Where did they pay out all that money? And the first time I saw that link from anywhere, from anybody, I just simply said, what was her cut? What did she get out of that $2 billion? You know, is Stacey Abrams about to buy a $10 million mansion outside of Atlanta or something I don't know about? I don't know. But $2 billion to an entity that has no real credibility is might as well be a Ponzi scheme at that point.
It's unbelievable. And here's the thing. Even if I'm trying to get the article
Trying
here.
to find the link of the
I want to say the actual, because if you're listening to this, go ahead and just look up the website. It's unbelievable. Powerforwardcommunities.org, I think it was.
And what are they going to do with the $2 billion that they get? Like, what does their proposal look like to get that $2 billion?
It's so obviously fraudulent, just on the surface. The name tells me it's one of these left-leaning,
Of course.
initiatives where there's going to be lots of people getting money. And I'm not accusing anybody of this. So my gut intuition there are a lot of grants like this that are given that make their way right back into the pockets of politicians. And, my gut instinct when they threw Joe Biden overboard and Kamala was announced, and I don't know if you remember this, we received $400 million in donations
Overnight.
the next day.
Yeah.
That just it doesn't pass the smell test.
For anybody.
In my opinion, there's money like this that's all over the planet and probably Cayman Islands and all. That's where this money's coming from.
Sure, of course. And that
In my
money
opinion.
that money was used to scare off Trump supporters at that point. Oh, she's got $400 million overnight.
Or there's so much enthusiasm and there's so
Right.
much joy, It's all
Or
that
joyful warriors, you know? I mean, yeah.
And it's those narratives and it's part of the propaganda, but it's certainly ammunition.
Right.
To buy off Harris or Ben Stiller or Oprah or
Right.
excuse me, not Oprah, but it's Harpo, her production company.
Yeah, our production
received
company
money.
got money out of it. Sure.
All these celebrities that got paid apparently.
Right.
From what I've seen.
I thought they cared about the cause.
Yeah.
I thought they were volunteering their time.
Beyonce got paid, right?
She got like $1 million too. Yeah, again.
So there's apparently all these people that are getting paid
Yeah.
to endorse these things, and that makes them propagandists.
In fact, on the back of Beyonce's big butt, you should just see a sign that says "Paid for by the Harris Waltz Camp." Something of that nature at that point.
All right, so we're back off a quick break, and we're going to jump into our next topic. And while, to be honest, I went to the restroom, got rid of some coffee, and Paul jumped on his phone. And what was the first thing that jumped up in your feed was
that popped up in my feed.
Go down to the bottom.
Was a organization called Feminist News. It was on Facebook, and I've never followed them in my life. And it even says it's got a little blue follow, like they want me to follow. Never heard of them, never seen them, never gone on their feed for anything.
I don't think you're a feminist either. I don't think this is
farthest from a feminist.
So I don't think this is you can't really put this in your algorithm.
Nah.
Okay,
This
so
is exactly what you were talking about.
This is exactly what we were
Yeah.
talking about. So you're getting a random feminist news. Go ahead and read it.
It says 6 weeks ago we had the strongest economy, employment, and stock market in history, all gone in 30 days.
All gone in 30 days. So The market shot up. It's the highest ever since Trump.
Yeah, since the election, since
Yeah.
the November election.
And
That's
go
right.
ahead. What was the first comment you saw in there?
The first comment. Oh, you know what? I didn't save the comment, but
Oh.
it said, and we had a president with integrity and compassion for all. I was like, oh my god.
So the president that basically pardoned his whole family, that was
Isn't that
such
amazing?
integrity.
You ever heard of that? Pardoning a family?
Never
from-
happened.
Never happened. Before.
Never happened before in history.
Well-
because he had so much integrity. That's why they had to do it.
But if you go back to the end of 2020, going into 2021, remember the media and Democrats like Elizabeth Warren and other people were, well, Trump may pardon his whole family. Well,
Right.
he didn't.
And they were saying what a piece of shit he would be if he did that.
Right, correct.
But now it's okay for Joe to
It's
do
fine
it.
now.
Yeah.
Totally fine. 4 years makes a difference.
So this was just interesting that came up. The random.
We're talking about it.
There it is.
Yep.
This is propaganda, folks. This is telling you we had the strongest economy. We just went over a lot of really dangerous indications of
Isn't
how
that
bad
kind of
the
fun?
economy
Yeah.
is.
Again, home sales are down, credit cards are up, strongest economy not.
Inflation up,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and stock market in history. Stock market's higher than it was ever in
It's
history.
down this week, but again, higher because of the spike that they had because of the election. Yes,
Right. So
100% agree.
literally the next day,
Yeah.
would it shoot up like 15% or something?
It was insane.
And then it's up like generally
Crypto,
10%
everything.
since then. So this is straight up lying about the strongest economy,
Yep.
employment. I mean, they were faking the job numbers,
Fraud.
just straight up fraud.
Straight up fraud. We can't, it's funny because I post the job numbers every month when they come out. I watch either Fox Business or CNBC and I'm watching the feed come up like, bam, this is the number. And every time I would comment, like, this is a lie. There's no way that these jobs were created in the last month.
And anybody who wants to verify this, you can go back and look. They would change the numbers like 2 months later,
Right.
and they would
Always revise them down.
way down.
Yep, always.
And so again,
well, but it was the September timeframe when they said, by the way, 600,000 jobs never existed. These numbers were not right. They had to do a total revision. They've never done that before either.
so this whole post
Yep.
from Feminist News is easy to debunk. Let's just say
100%.
that.
Yeah.
So is this propaganda?
100%.
It's 100%
100%
propaganda.
propaganda, man.
So
And
let's
by the way, this is what we were talking about. This is what happened.
right.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. We are surrounded by tiny little things like that everywhere. We're conditioned everywhere. And if you don't believe you're conditioned, what do you clean your ears with?
Yeah.
Q-tips.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to say that's not a Q-tip, it's a cotton swab.
Right.
What do you grab a Kleenex? You drink a Coke. We're all branded. So we have to understand this. So you take this one little thing in your feed
Right.
times 1,000 things a day, 30 months, 30 days a month,
Right.
all year long. All of a sudden you think Trump is the worst thing ever. And it's
Right.
like you don't even, and when you can't say why, it's because you've been hit with a million of these little things.
If you've ever seen the movie They Live, the Roddy Piper movie from the 90s, all they did, the guys who were in the resistance, they had these different sunglasses. They put on the sunglasses, and all of a sudden they see behind a media poster or something, it says, consume more. But you take the glasses off, it says, eat at Joe's or whatever.
Yeah.
In other words, the media propaganda is being shifted. Now they're shifting it onto your feed so you can continue to see media propaganda versus truth or anything that
Right.
we need,
And to be honest, that Feminist News, whatever that was,
Right.
that wouldn't surprise me if that's funded by U.S. taxpayers.
probably USAID.
Honest to goodness, I would put a bet on it
Right.
that if you could go trace where that came from, who's created that site,
Right.
you trace it back, I believe that comes from taxpayer money. And I think that's disgusting. If it's true.
Yeah.
And if I had to put a bet on it, I would say it's about 85% chance that's true.
The odds would not be against you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next, and that's just random. It's
Random
just constant.
BS.
So the next one, the "I didn't elect him" starter pack.
Oh, Lord,
So of
bro.
course, part of demonizing Elon Musk is that we didn't elect Elon Musk. Blah blah
Unelected.
blah.
Unelected.
And so my question for that is, who elected the Supreme Court justices? Nobody.
Nobody.
Who elected Mayorkas?
Nobody.
So
Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg, anybody you want to name,
Right.
anybody in Joe Biden's last cabinet, not any of those humans were elected by the American public.
So how come nobody was outraged that they didn't elect those people?
They weren't programmed to say that at the
They
time.
weren't told to say,
Correct.
you know. And of course, looking at this particular meme, you've got the Soros, which is obviously talking about the billionaires, you know, that are involved. How come you were never outraged about that billionaire
Right.
or his son, who's clearly involved in all this?
So I've taken to social media on this recently. Wake County Board of Education, Sam Hershey. Sam Hershey was out there talking about people under Trump who were unelected. And to which I replied to Sam Hershey by saying the Wake County School Superintendent is not elected. The Raleigh City Manager is not elected. Like, I can go down the list of everybody whom you have a say that they are not elected individuals either. And I don't see you demonizing these people.
Right.
So in other words, it's always about the ideology side of it.
Sure. And again, get off the team
Right.
and just become an umpire.
Right.
You know, you
Balls
can,
and strikes.
Here's the thing. You could say, I don't like Elon Musk. I don't agree with his positions. And then go into the positions and make the case. But don't use some bullshit like I didn't elect him.
Right.
Because you don't elect a lot of the people that impact
You weren't
us.
elected. Okay,
so
cool.
it doesn't matter that he's not elected. He's entrusted and he's part of the program now.
Right.
Just like Mayorkas was.
Mayorkas, Merrick Garland.
Countless people.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody under the regime at that point.
Right. So next one here. This one will be brief, I think. U.S. Postal Service to step down after 5 years marked by pandemic losses and cuts. I mean, I want to say that I did a podcast during early COVID about how the post office needed to be shut down because they were trying to get stimulus funds back then because they were so broke.
Right.
They wanted billions of dollars from the government. And I was basically saying, you know, that the post office can be replaced with technology.
Yeah.
Outsource the shipping to US and UPS or FedEx and the UPS. Why would they compete with an organization that loses billions? And the other thing is mail. Well, people need mail. We have email.
Right.
We can't scan an email and not ship letters all over the country.
It is. Well, you know what? Even though in political times, think about how many mailers you had sent to your house.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
They're still throwing mail at you as hard as they possibly can for advertisers or, you know, even the little, whatever, the pack thing you open up and you see all these advertisers inside of it and whatnot. To them, the mail source, though, is a serious job. You know, there's thousands and thousands of jobs in the mail entity. Their idea is they have to save it to save those jobs. That is their mentality now. I'm just telling you what they think.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but I also make the case like if the government started Blockbuster,
Right.
we would be propping it up.
Yep.
Nobody's, less people renting movies than ever.
Right.
Videotapes, but the government would be propping it up, and now these guys have continued to lose billions. What they lose $9 billion last year?
Is that all?
So they've lost literally like $100 billion over the last 10,
Yeah.
20 years or something, some ridiculous number.
Right.
But it's like, when is enough enough?
Right.
Just because it's government, and yeah, there's good people that work here.
Sure.
I get it. Whatever jobs would be lost, go work at FedEx.
No.
Give these people early retirements. There's lots of things you can do.
That's part of their problem, though. Legacy costs from government jobs is insane.
I believe it.
These people work 20 years, they retire at 50, and we're paying them a pension for the next 28
I hear
years,
ya.
30 years of their life.
But we're losing $9
Oh,
billion.
no, I agree. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I think they ought to raise mandatory retirement for a lot of these people. They're doing it in the private sector. They should be doing it in the public sector as well.
This is the post office is just this cancer on the budget
Oh, yeah.
that's going to continue growing unless
Oh,
it's
yeah.
dealt with. And there's a lot of good people that'll be affected, just like when I don't want to jump into the next thing, but there's a lot of trends that affect, people that lost their jobs from manufacturing that went overseas, people
right.
that lost their textile jobs
Well, that's
in
private
North Carolina.
sector. That's private sector.
Yeah,
we don't care.
and they can piss off,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, private sector. We
There's
don't
no
care.
empathy for private sector ever, and we're gonna get to that in one of these.
So Linda McMahon is going to be in charge of the education department, right? Trump has basically told her, I hope you find yourself a way out of this job. They have talked about wanting to shut down the education department. Now, I ran a campaign back in 2010, 15 years ago. I ran Bill Randall's campaign when he was running for Congress. And we were at an event where Brad Miller was there, who was the current sitting congressman. My candidate, Bill Randall, was there. And we talked about the education department. And Bill Randall said, I think we should shut it down. To which Brad Miller replies, oh, well, you don't want North Carolina to see $4 billion of education funding. And it floored me that he would give this answer because the education department isn't printing money
Right.
to send to us. They take the money from us,
Right.
funnel it through whatever they have to do in
Bureaucracy.
the government, through the bureaucracy, red tape, and then they send some of our own money back.
Right.
The Department of Education hasn't done anything, produced anything, made scores better or grade levels better or reading better. They haven't done anything in the last 40 years.
Right.
Let it go.
And we're spending, again, it's another government
Correct.
bureaucracy that we're spending billions and billions and billions, and the results keep going down.
And it's redundant.
Right.
We have a state department of education. We have county boards of education. What are we doing?
All right. So next one up. here.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. It's a
We
good
get
point.
on these tangents, by the way. But
So the next one is a tweet. I love where'd this come from? I follow these guys. They send all these hypocritical things, which are amazing. So the blonde girl on Twitter here. I was terminated from my dream job with the Children's Bureau yesterday due to the federal restructuring executive order, DOGE. I'm unemployed for the first time since I was 15 years old. Defiant L's, by the way. Follow them at Defiant L's. They're amazing. I hope you get your cheap fucking eggs or fucking cheap eggs. And then that was on February 15th of 25.
Right. Yep.
On 10/30 of 24. Didn't have any meetings today, so I've been wearing my jammies all day, but now I have a meeting in 30 minutes. So putting on a hoodie, eventually that what the hell life gonna get you. It got her.
they got her. Yeah,
And
gotcha.
so, what's amazing to me is,
Gotcha.
and I love following this because it has all these, hypocrites on here, which it's amazing to me. I see friends following some of these people that are constantly these hypocritical posts. Anyway, first off, the Children's Bureau.
What is that?
What exactly
What do they do?
the F would that organization
they
be
do?
doing?
Yeah.
Were they lobbying for not having kids being transitioned?
Oh, Lord.
Were they lobbying for kids not to take experimental mRNA shots?
Could be anything.
Are children getting healthier? Are children getting smarter? Like what exactly? Probably producing no results from this organization.
Zero. It produced some jobs, some taxpayer funded jobs.
Right. And this person was probably making 150 grand a year to have some unaccountable, non-result oriented job. And
So
now
the
she
answer
needs to
is
look
I
for a
would
job.
rather have cheap eggs than have her employed.
Oh,
Yeah,
no
you're
question
damn
about
right.
it. Yeah. And again, by the way, this topic of cheap eggs, the Biden administration killed, what was it, 100 million chickens?
Oh, it was a crazy number, yeah. They were hen laying, they were all hen laying producing chickens.
100 million chickens. And we wonder
Yeah.
why the cost of eggs went up.
No, there's still a mystery.
And again, the reason, maybe it was the bird flu reason. That was the reason given.
Same people who are out there, and again, yes, egg prices are higher. I know, I buy eggs. I do the grocery shopping
Right.
in my house, right? But the same people out there reporting that egg prices are higher haven't talked about pork and beef prices going lower. Weird.
Yeah,
right?
strange.
Yeah, kind of strange.
It's almost like people only talk about what suits their narrative.
That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Next one. I've seen this post many times, so I had to screenshot it. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, Lord.
How sad it must be that believing scientists, scholars, historians, economists, and journalists have devoted their entire lives to deceiving you, while a reality TV star with decades of fraud and exhaustively documented lying is your only beacon of truth and honesty. So let's start with the top. First off, Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you ask him how many genders are there,
Yeah. Does he answer that question?
he doesn't answer in a scientific way.
Why not?
He says, what does it matter to you? I don't know. It's biology, isn't it? Isn't that science?
Science.
Okay.
And science tells you, guess what? There are two genders.
Right.
That's what science tells you.
Right.
I shouldn't ignore science, right?
So believing that what scientists are we talking about here that need to be believed?
Right.
Like Fauci?
I don't, whatever. Wouldn't believe anything he says.
How many scientists can I go into that were misleading people online?
Right.
Scholars, historians, economists. Are these the scholars, historians, economists, and journalists that were not censored?
During that period of time, I would rather believe somebody who was censored than not.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so there's countless people that were censored.
Right.
I mean, Stanford professors, like all types of Peter McCullough. I mean, was one of the most published doctors in the United States,
Right.
and he was made to look like a maniac.
Right.
So that's when I see this. It's like, no, you're believing your scientists that have your perspective.
Well, I mean, they believe Greta Thunberg. I mean,
Yeah.
she's got to be a scientist. She
Right.
knows more about the environment than anybody, right?
Right.
So she knows more about it than Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Meanwhile, there's 2 Nobel Prize winning scientists that will tell you climate change is not a real thing.
It's a joke.
And the models
I'll
are
say
wrong.
that again. It's a joke.
So that being said, this meme is kind of picking and choosing which people you want to listen to.
Right.
Science is debating
Correct.
and getting to the scientific method, which should be reproducible.
Correct.
And you should be able to deduce logic from your scientific experiments.
Well, again, it's these same people that say follow the science. Well, okay, at a pattern of time in which the Earth was heating, right? Mm-hmm. At the same pattern of time, Mars was heating. How many SUVs were on Mars at the same time?
Right.
Now, how much natural gas, how much gasoline, how much coal were they burning on Mars? And both planets are heating at the same time. I mean, there's this big yellow thing in the center of our universe that would tell us, hey, I'm going to control how much heat you get. Mm-hmm. Versus SUVs are ruining the Earth. It's just not, it's not logical.
Well, the other thing is that, first off, science says that the Earth has heated and cooled without the influence from man.
Without the industrial era.
Right. Yeah. So the Ice Age was a real thing. There's science to prove it. We have the Great Lakes because the Ice Age melted.
Right.
Or a lot of the ice melted to create the Great Lakes.
Right.
But that's not from Chevy Tahoes.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be not polluting.
We're supposed to be stewards of our planet.
We should be a good steward of the planet. I'm all for great ideas that improve
100%.
Electric cars, while not the perfect solution, are probably slightly better. I'm guessing.
Yeah, fine. They're fine for whatever you need.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, coming back to this meme is just kind of disingenuous.
Of course.
And you're taking things out of context.
I'm going to say he's slightly more intelligent than Bill Nye. But they're both TV guys to me. They're both paid actors at this point.
Well, and let's face it, there's a lot of like going back to I Love Aliens and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
sure.
the topic of aliens.
Yeah.
And Project Blue Book and different government studies that really were designed to debunk all the stuff going on.
Right.
So they would hire scientists and quote unquote experts to basically come in. I don't recall the guy's name, but he headed up a commission, the Condon Commission. Edward Condon, I did remember.
Okay.
Wow, that alpha male brain stuff is kicking in.
Coffee finally kicked in.
Yeah, coffee's kicking in. Edward Condon created the Condon Report, and he was quoted as saying something early on when they first had him. He says, "Oh, this is all nonsense, but I'm not supposed to come up with that conclusion for another year."
Right, but remember, you just said it. They hired these scientists. Remember, a lot of these people who are hired by the federal government, the federal government gives you a list of things. They're like, hey, we want you to do a study based on this. And in that study, it'll say, how does this affect blah, blah, blah by using climate change? How do the mating patterns of gray squirrels, are they affected by climate change? That's the story that they tell you. And they tell you to come up with a narrative, or, they'll pay you $80,000 to write up your narrative on why the climate change is affecting the mating habits of gray squirrels.
Right.
Whether it's anything factual or real or whatever, you've covered the story, you got your check, you're done.
Right.
Yeah.
And you might be unemployed If
Correct.
you work for, you might not get a grant, and
EPA
you don't know where
will
your
give
money's
you
coming
another
from.
grant. You know, you did such a great job on the gray squirrel mating thing. Let's give you one about, penguin mating. So we're going to send you down to the Arctic too at the same time, you know?
All right, so there we go on that one. Next one. Zelensky says Ukraine will not accept any peace deal without Kiev's involvement.
Whatever. He needs. How much money has he gotten from us? Like 300 billion.
No, he says this was another one of the topics. We'll just jump into it now.
Sure.
He says he's only received 77 out of the 177 or
Is that
70
the number?
He says it in one of our later ones here. He said he basically has not received $100 billion that we said that we gave him.
I'm pretty sure that we've said, or our reporters have stated that it's been like $200 billion to Ukraine. So he hasn't received his $200 billion.
He is saying point blank, and we'll show that video here in a little bit, that he
Yeah.
hasn't received all the money.
Where'd it go?
So somebody's lying.
Somebody had an election to pay for, and I'm sorry. No, I'm not saying that's where it went.
Yeah.
However, strange that $130 billion of promised funds to Zelensky have not been accounted for.
Right.
Wonder why.
Interesting.
Who was
right?
in charge of that? That was Joe Biden's presidency, right?
Yeah. And what's interesting is on their way out, they couldn't stop spending money while North Carolinians were, being
They're cold in Western
ignored.
North Carolina. Yeah.
While they're being ignored, we went to Africa, Joe
Ghana.
Biden went to Ghana for $1 billion for
for
hurricane damage for Ghana or
I don't
something.
even know what it was. Climate change.
like
it
$1
could
billion.
be anything. Yeah.
So they were going around dumping money off everywhere,
Right.
except for North Carolina.
Right. For $1 billion, we could house a lot of people in Western North Carolina.
Unbelievable.
Just to get them safe and sheltered.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess we got off topic with Zelensky here, but
Yeah.
I mean, does he have a choice really? If Russia and U.S. agree, what's the other choice? Like NATO's going to back him? Maybe that's the case. I don't know.
At this point, as long as humans are no longer dying in a conflict, he should be grateful.
I agree.
That should be the end of it.
I agree.
Instead of saying, well, we need to make sure that we have to say X, Y, and Z at this meeting. No, as long as the ceasefire the hostilities end, that should be all that matters to him.
Mm-hmm.
As long as Russia takes their little, tanks and goes the other direction, that should be all that matters, whether he's involved or not.
I said this a long time ago. I said Trump will have this resolved within like 90 days of becoming president. And what's going to happen is they're going to bitch about the terms.
Of course.
They're going to demonize the terms. But here's the thing. How many times did Joe Biden reach out to Putin to discuss this?
Probably many. And Putin just said, I don't want to talk to you.
You think?
There's no telling. We're never going to know the behind the scenes on that. But let's be honest. If Joe Biden reached out to Vladimir Putin laughed it off and said, I need to talk to somebody serious, not you.
Well, I mean, while I can see that point of view, I think we were trying to up the antes and increase the tension, I think we were trying to escalate.
So you think Biden was pushing the aggression?
That's what I believe.
Okay. No, that's cool because
Yeah. I mean, we can agree to disagree, maybe.
No, I'm
but
not even disagreeing. I'm just,
I don't believe we ever wanted to de-escalate it. I don't believe did we send any envoys over to discuss? Boris, if you remember, Tucker Carlson talks about this a lot, where Zelensky was going to sign something with Russia, and not Boris Yeltsin, the dude from UK, the former...
Johnson. Yeah, Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
He basically go over there, nixed it.
Yeah.
And we had pressure. Why would we stop that
Why?
peace agreement?
Yeah, why?
Because I believe NATO wants a war with Russia. I actually believe that, and that's sad.
So during this period of time, you have to remember, because the U.S. had ramped down their oil and gas production, right? The European nations were still buying their gas from Russia the entire time.
Right.
Who did that war help? It helped Russia.
Right.
That's all it helped. It helped Russia. Nobody else.
Well, there's obviously there's agendas involved from lots of people.
Yeah.
But it's, by the way, we're talking about some semi-controversial topics, obviously, today.
Yeah, sure.
As a fun fact, if you watch a future video, I'm going to post this. I'm going to try to pay to promote this with YouTube.
Sure.
And they will not allow me to promote this video.
Stop.
Imagine that, right? So what's funny
It's
is,
called censorship.
well, but again, in a future video, I'm going to just go ahead and put it on record.
Right.
They will not let me promote this video.
Wow.
Hopefully they don't take it down, to be honest.
Wow.
But all right, so next one up here. We're kind of double slamming this topic
That's
here,
all right.
but this randomly came into my X feed. I guess changes are being really made. That's Anomaly. He posts some pretty good topics on Facebook here. But this person along with 2,000 other NIH employees, I had to clear out my office crying emoji. Right. It was truly the honor of my life to work with such incredibly passionate people focused on improving human health.
Human health.
So my first thoughts on this, Paul, is the human lifespan has gone down for 2 years in a row in the United States.
You're not exaggerating.
Americans are fatter than they've ever been. We're probably unhealthier than we've been in a long time. We're coming off where all kinds of people are experimenting on with shots,
Vaccine.
When you Google vaccine or when you look up the Webster's dictionary,
Right.
it says it creates immunity.
Right.
Okay. So I don't call it that anymore. Just for the record, I don't call it because it's not that. Okay.
I think it created a subsidy for the pharma companies,
Sure.
and that was about it.
Yeah. So looking at this NIH employee, first off, we know NIH funded the Wuhan lab.
Right. Well, you mean Fauci never admitted that, though, right? He's never.
No, I mean, it's crystal clear at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he said he never funded gain of function.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, which Rand
However,
Paul,
Rand Paul, Jim Jordan, those guys are going to run roughshod over him.
as they should.
Yes.
He's lying.
Yes.
You know,
lying to the American public.
He went and changed the definition on their website of what gain of function is, but
Right.
in the coronavirus lab, the virus literally gained function.
And I
from
want
the
to know
experiments.
everything. I want to know. They talked about UNC Chapel Hill. Was UNC Chapel Hill involved? Was Wuhan involved? Show me everything. Don't hide anything from me.
Right.
I'm a person who needs information. I don't run from it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, any case, so NIH losing employees, and so improving human health. 2,000 employees. I can only imagine these people were probably making 150 grand a year on average. Just the amount of payroll is unbelievable for one tiny little department.
Not necessary.
But improving human health as human health is declining from my perspective.
Massively.
Everything that I do right now as a 50-year-old man, I have to go search out the data. The government's not telling me about peptides.
Right.
The government's not telling me about earthing or cold plunging or how important vitamin D is.
Right.
It's not telling me any of this stuff.
Right.
So what the F is this organization doing? I have to go search out all the information that's making my life better.
Right.
I have to go search it out, and I'm spending my own money and time.
Your own time
Right.
to do it.
The government's not providing this stuff. If anything, they're just shills for the pharmaceutical companies. Shoot up with this.
Right.
Don't lose weight and change your lifestyle. Take this drug.
Right.
Take this shot.
Yeah, correct. It's what they've been doing for the last, 35, 40 years now.
Right.
Like, you will see kids. I want you to think about all of the jingles you used to sing from commercials and whatnot. You will see kids parroting the jingles from pharma commercials now. Why? Because every one of them is a musical. You know, like whatever it is, like Jardians or whatever.
Right.
That is a musical production for a pharma commercial. So, yeah, it's the narrative that's gone to the wayside. They're not doing anything for human health if they're making you codependent on pharma products at that point.
All right, so we're going to change it up here. We're going to get out of the political mode here, and we're going to listen to a Gary Vee, one of my dudes here. I love Gary Vee. This is kind of funny.
Nobody gives a fuck about you or me or anybody. They care about their own shit. Here is why I'm always happy. I got a lot going on. I know who the fuck I am. And I'm telling you, nobody gives a fuck. That humility is everything. Everybody's so insecure because they ain't fucking humble. You think you're somebody. You think you're supposed to be somebody. Once you realize you're nothing, then you can't be beat. Nobody can beat me. Nobody can make my feelings feel hurt. Nobody can stop me. You know why? Because I don't think I'm anybody. So what the fuck are you saying? Just be happy. Fucking calm it down.
The first thing First off, I love Gary's like, I'm fucking happy. That's the first thing that jumps out to me.
Kind of jacked up a little bit while he's talking about it there, right?
Well, the thing is, and I know as a business owner, you understand this. First off, Gary Vee is obviously very happy when you listen to all of his content, but you can tell what I gather from this video is he's dealing with so many people, right? And we were just talking about this even before the podcast. When you deal with the public on a regular basis, it's frustrating dealing with so many people out there, right? And he's probably said this same message so many times. It's starting to take when I hear this video, it's like Gary needs to stop responding to some of the public.
Right.
And you and I both were talking earlier.
Oh, yeah.
1 or 2% of your customers will just absolutely fucking wear you out.
Ooh, bruh, wear you out. Take every last bit of empathy and sympathy, and they will throw it out the window because they have worn you down.
And so somebody who is genuinely happy, like a Gary Vee, you could tell it's like this was one of those days he's just had enough, right?
Sure, yeah.
And he probably needs to take a break. But that being said, his message is 100% true. Let go of ego.
Dude, humility is lost on a lot of people. Once they realize how infinitesimal we really are, it's a better perspective in life. And when I was a restaurant owner, people didn't know I was a restaurant owner. They didn't see me walk around table touch. How are you doing today? Or,
Right.
They would see me bust tables.
Yeah.
They would see me take, glasses back to the dish pit. I would wash dishes in the dish pit. I would tend bar. I would do every single menial task, take out the trash, whatever, as any one of my employees would have done. Why? Because if I had an ego, I would have just pointed and said, do this, this, and this. But when you remove your ego from the situation, when you become part of everybody on the same ground floor, the same level, when you have that humility, then you can understand their perspective a whole lot better than just saying, hey, I don't want to understand your perspective because it's all about me.
Right.
And that's what that's what I got from him.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing is let go of what I would say is let go of what people think about you, because his point is they don't think about you.
Right.
Like if you're looking at this podcast and you don't like me or you don't like my perspective,
Right.
I really don't give a fuck.
I mean, you'll get more hate because I'm here, but that's
Well,
okay. I don't
probably,
care either.
Probably. But it's the thing. Here's the thing. Like even if somebody somebody that I did something, let's say I dated someone, for example, when I first got divorced.
Sure.
And they don't like me
Right.
because of A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I would say. Well, I did that and that was wrong. And I wasn't the man I am today.
Right.
And I wasn't my best self. And she's right to be mad at me for that.
Okay.
And now what?
Yeah.
It's all we can do, right? And so
And you can't harbor it.
No.
You can't harbor the guilt. You can't harbor any of that stuff.
Own it.
Because all you're going to do is then you're going to turn around and place it on somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, don't harbor it. Yeah.
So, any case, it's so many people are afraid to try, and they're afraid to aim for something big. I hope it's not because you're afraid what people are going to think.
Right.
I would rather, we were talking about the new cigar company I'm starting.
Yeah.
I would rather shoot for the moon and fall flat on my face than play it safe. Me go work for a big company, play it safe. I never would have started this company, any company, if you're going to play it safe, because that's not the easy path.
That is not playing it safe.
That's for sure.
That is the opposite.
So, but are you ever going to accomplish anything great playing it safe? Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
But it's not, it's a different mentality, and kind of what he was talking about, humility. I say it because there are so many people who are literally hedonists. They are only involved in their self-interest. They're only involved in what they can gain for themselves. And I think when you have a servant's heart, when you have a servant's mentality, it's easier to let go from that.
Yeah.
And you're genuinely helping people because you've let go of ego.
Or that's your intention.
Yep, exactly.
And if intention matters, and if we fall short, we can own it.
Yeah.
So moving on right back into politics.
Right? Got it. Small segue, bam, right back.
Oh,
I need an interpreter for that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that was Zelensky saying we came up 100 billion short.
Gosh.
So this is from let's see. This is from Libs of TikTok here.
Okay.
This is breaking. Wanda Geter Pataski, vice chair for the Bridgeport Democratic Party in Connecticut,
interesting.
has turned herself into police for alleged voter fraud after she was caught stuffing ballot boxes in 2023.
Man, you know that doesn't happen, right?
So let's take a look at this. This is her walking up.
Wanda, any comment on the new charges?
Strange, no comment.
She didn't have a comment about it?
Never could have seen that coming. And of course, this is, they got pictures of her stuffing ballot boxes. The one thing I'll say about this, obviously you already said, wait, voter fraud doesn't happen.
Oh, it doesn't happen.
Of course it happens.
Everybody tells you voter fraud doesn't happen in this country.
Countless examples of it. Matter of fact, I don't know if it was this election or if it was a different one, but a judge overturned an election because there was proof of voter fraud.
Okay, good.
Now that was Democrat against Democrat.
Yeah, but still.
But the precedent was set. It's
Right.
We got to get away from ballot boxes.
Right.
This is trash. The New York Times wrote an article, I want to say it was in 2010. No, it was during the Bush administration, about how bad voter fraud is
Right.
when there's mail-in voting.
Well, now you can go back to, again, 2020, the 2020 election, where they were just having voter drop boxes. How in any world can that be considered legitimate?
Right.
In any universe, anybody could just drop off 100 ballots and walk on down the road. Now, there are clearly documentaries and movies and all kinds of information about it, and they've all been quote unquote debunked. But it's really hard to ignore your own eyes when you see people doing it.
Well, is it debunked by the people that were
By the winners.
letting it happen?
That's right.
Yeah.
Debunked by the winners. And of course, the propaganda media will just carry along that narrative and not try to do any investigation on their own.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and here's the thing: I don't care who it benefits. It has to be a secure system.
Correct.
Some people like to throw the term "threat to democracy" around. There is no bigger threat to democracy than voter fraud.
That's it.
Period.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
And
When you're taking my vote away from me, you've committed a sin in my eyes.
well, that's another
Yeah.
talking point: voter disenfranchisement.
Yep.
Well, when you allow voter fraud, that is voter disenfranchisement. You're nullifying my vote.
Yep.
A taxpayer.
Right.
So to me, it's like so many things. The solutions are simple. There has to be a national voter ID law,
Right.
which, by the way, Trump won every state that had voter ID.
Right.
And
Amazingly.
he only won one state that didn't have voter ID.
Yeah.
Is that a coincidence? I don't know.
I don't know either, but
interesting, isn't it?
You should see how the voter ID laws are put into place in this state. Like, we were allowing things like student IDs and all kinds of things that they could use as long as it had their picture and their date of birth, then we could use it, right? The reason why the $100 bill has been changed 9 times in the last 30 years is because they didn't want forgery, or i.e. fraud. So if we're continually changing a $100 bill to avoid fraud, why aren't we looking at our election laws?
Right.
Because there are loopholes everywhere for people who are not even citizens to vote.
Right.
I only want a citizen to vote in the election. If a registered citizen votes in our election, I'm okay with whatever the outcome is, and that's it. Nothing
Period.
else.
Yeah. And why would anybody want a foreigner that's not a citizen to vote in this country?
The fact that they were passing laws in some of those cities like San Francisco and New York City saying that non-citizens can vote in an election, that just tells me the election is useless at that point.
Right.
It's where we can't vote in other countries.
Right.
Why can other citizens of other countries vote in our elections?
And see, this comes back to the principles thing. If countless people were coming here and voting for Trump, there would be outrage.
It'd be
about
ended.
It. Yeah, it'd be ended immediately.
There would be police at every single voting station in every single blue city in this country.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. You and I agree. I'm not attached to the outcome necessarily.
Right.
I'm not attached to the outcome of the Super Bowl.
Right.
I want the game to be fair.
Right.
Okay? That's it.
Yep.
The government should be referees,
Right.
not players.
Right. But they are literally playing in this game, I promise you.
Yeah.
They're more concerned about, you used to be able to say that there was a symbiotic relationship between the citizens, business, and the government. But literally now it's a parasitic relationship. And the government is doing everything it can to keep its existence in place. Businesses and entities always look at areas to chop. IBM is not the same IBM that started in the 1950s. They have chopped and they have done different, and they have evolved, right? Every time you have a government department, they never lose it, no matter what.
Right.
They never chop it off.
And as a household, as money gets tighter, what do people do? We're looking to trim bills.
Find ways
Looking
to cut
to
back.
eat out less. We're looking to get rid of this Netflix or
I
whatever.
was gonna say, I'm not using that app anymore. Why am I paying for it? You know,
Right.
we look at ways to save money, but
Right.
the government does not.
Right.
I mean,
They just smash us more.
Baseline
or
budgeting.
print more money, which
Correct.
smashes us on the back end.
yeah.
All right, next one here. This is from the Larry King show a long time ago.
Okay.
I don't know what happened in 1990. There was no plague that was killing children, that we had triple the amount of vaccines.
What happened
Let's be
after
smart.
1989 that
Control.
warranted 26 more vaccines
Agreed.
in 30 countries in the Western world? We give twice as many shots as any of those countries. Why is that? I don't think we can afford to assume that the people who are charged with our public health have our best interests at heart all the time. Parents have to make their own decisions, educated decisions. They have to look at the information.
Why would a doctor not want to know more about something that could save a life or prevent a disease?
The AAP is financed by the drug companies. Medical
the drug
schools are
companies
financed
wanna
by the
keep
drug
this going.
companies. This is a huge business. Vaccines are the largest growing division of the pharmaceutical industry. What we're asking is for them to take a loss for the good of our children. That's a tough sell in a boardroom.
That was the Jim Carrey and Jenny McCarthy
Yeah.
back then, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
And I want to say this was like 25 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sounds pretty accurate to me. You would be censored off the internet for saying that a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It might still be
That's
now.
heresy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, how dare you say that online now?
It's just amazing to me that why would we not be pushing especially when it comes to our kids and grandkids, why would we not be pushing to make sure everything is as safe as possible and vetted?
Okay, Cuomo, not the governor, the CNN guy.
Chris Cuomo?
Chris Cuomo.
Former CNN guy.
Yeah, former
Yeah.
CNN guy. But while he was on CNN and people were taking ivermectin, he was calling it a horse dewormer.
Right.
They had him on video saying that because later on he was somewhere else talking about ivermectin, and he said, "Well, I'm taking ivermectin right
Yeah.
now." And one of the guys like, "Whoa, dude!" And he pulled up the link where Chris Cuomo was calling it
Right.
a horse dewormer.
Yeah, that was on the Patrick Bet David.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
They had Patrick Bet David was hosting it, and the other guy who's really sharp, libertarian guy. Anyway, what was amazing, and I will say, like, I like Chris Cuomo a little bit better now. I've listened to a lot of his stuff. He seems to be pretty open-minded for the most part.
He's kind of taking the same path, and we talked about Bill Maher, and he's kind of starting to take that same path. It's not the full, I want to be down the road calling balls and strikes. It's still a left-leaning, but
Right.
yes, he's become more centrist.
Well, here's the thing. Now that he's left a network that maybe he couldn't have his own opinions on.
Maybe, yeah.
But he still couldn't own the fact that the horse dewormer thing.
It's such it's again an unnecessary narrative that should have never happened. But they did it for scare tactics because they wanted you out there taking that vaccine.
Well, there's that, but the other thing, from what I understand, is that you can't have an emergency use authorization if there's a treatment.
Right.
And so it would have revoked the emergency use authorization. Now they can't sell it anymore.
Right.
And so if there was treatments, whether it was ivermectin
HCQ
or
or
hydroxychloroquine,
Yeah.
I think it's called, or any other treatment.
Yeah.
If there are treatments, you can't have the emergency use authorization.
You know, when they started demonizing HCQ, they talked about it. I've got a friend of mine who's a real estate agent that I do business with all the time. His name is Dennis, and he's Nigerian. Now, they take HCQ, and he called it, and I'd never heard this phrase before, he called it a Sunday to Sunday drug. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, you take it every day of the week. They take HCQ in Nigeria for malaria issues.
Right.
And again, I'd never known any of this stuff until he brought it up during that period of time when he called it a Sunday to Sunday drug. They demonized it because HCQ is cheap. Mm-hmm. It's no cost at all to make
Right.
whatsoever.
No patents.
No patent, nothing. There's nothing there
Right.
that they had to make money off of, and that's why
Award winning. Is that Nobel Prize?
Probably.
No, it was.
It had 50 years of science
We'll
behind
have to
it.
we'll have to Google that. But
Yeah.
I almost want to say it was Nobel Prize winning.
It may have been
Ivermectin.
Ivermectin probably was. Yeah.
Let's just.
But it was, again, They took plenty of time to demonize it while Joe Rogan was taking it.
And you know what? Here's how you can spot propaganda, right? It's when Joe Rogan got it
Yeah.
and he was over it like in 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
How come they didn't want to know what he did?
Why don't you want to tell the world?
You automatically go into demonizing what he did versus figuring out what he did. Like, wow, that was pretty amazing turnaround.
Sure.
Well, he's in great physical condition.
Right.
He probably takes a shit ton of vitamins. He did this protocol that his doctor told him about.
Right.
And he was through it in like 48 hours. The fact that they not only didn't want you to know what he did, they demonized him. That should tell you there's something there.
Correct.
That's critical thinking.
It's the same thing with the message that they want to carry. They want to have a message that they want to use. They'll say, "Hey, there's no evidence of Hunter Biden's laptop," and then they'll never tell you the truth even afterwards. It's the same thing with ivermectin versus the shot.
By the way, if you're listening to this, you can just straight up Google when did the FBI know about Hunter Biden's laptop?
Because somebody should tell Leslie Stahl too. By the way, I don't think she knows yet.
Yeah, Leslie, if you can hear this, check this out, Leslie. When did the FBI know about Hunter Biden's laptop?
Oh, it had to have been in the early 2020 time frame. I would say like March, April, May time frame. AI will be like,
Well, I did this before.
Oh, now they're censoring you.
You know, I have a screenshot of when I did this before. When did the FBI have Hunter Biden's laptop? All right, we're doing this live.
That's all right.
Interesting.
What are they going to say, 2018?
This has changed again.
Uh-oh.
Hang on. Let's get over to X.
Uh-oh. Time to go to Wiki.
No, I'm. This is why, honestly, this is why I start screenshotting stuff. You know what I did a while back when I was preparing for a conversation?
Right.
Is I Googled, this was in 2020, I Googled who spent the most money lobbying in 2019, and it was pharma, and I still have the screenshot. If I can get it, I'll put it up on Mustafa put it on the thing here if I still have it on this phone. Anyway, it was pharmaceutical industry. It spent like $300 million or some ridiculous number.
Right.
You can't find that anymore.
ChatGPT said the FBI first became aware of Hunter's Biden laptop April of 2019.
April of 2019.
April of 2019.
Is when they had it.
Okay.
So
nobody told Leslie Stahl for some reason.
Nobody
right?
told Leslie.
Yeah.
Or she didn't want to talk about it because that wouldn't serve propaganda. Did ivermectin win the Nobel Prize?
I think it did. I think it's a Nobel Prize winning drug. Yeah.
I said that like a moron. Let me try this. Ivermectin won Nobel Prize when? ?
Probably in the 80s. It's been around.
Nobel Prize honored distinction.
What year?
God bless America. We're on a podcast. We'll look at this.
That's all right.
I'll look at this and we'll.
That's okay.
We'll throw it up there. We'll post edit this.
Everybody will find they're gonna get on the. It's always easier to find something on a laptop than it is a phone anyway.
Yeah. So, any case, that's that. Let's jump into this next one here. This is Colin Rugg at Colin Rugg on Twitter. Here we go.
National Cancer Institute funded study was terminated. I never received a written letter, but I was told to stop work immediately and that no more research expenditures would be allowed. My study to explore how to safely collect sexual orientation and gender identity in cancer care practices was in response to the American Society of Clinical Oncology, the American Medical Association, the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, and many other national professional standard-setting bodies that recognize that we need better data to create better clinical guidelines for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex people.
Intersex people.
So
some science there, right?
So her job was how to safely collect sexual orientation and gender identity practices. His post basically says, LMAO, you literally can't tell what's parody anymore.
Right.
And when I look at this,
What's that Saturday Night Live skit or something?
Yeah, there's people with masks on in the crowd in the back.
Yeah.
Like she totally looks the part. Like you could look at her and be like, oh yeah, she voted for Kamala 100%. And she's lost her job where she's got this job doing who knows like whatever she does here. And it's like, it's so true. It's like reality stranger than fiction. Like this would have been, if someone like this existed with this crowd,
right,
10, 20 years ago, they would have been like, this is bullshit. This will never
they would
happen.
be like, your job is what?
Right.
Right. It's not a producing thing. Nobody, for what her job is, you can Google it and be done with it. AI can figure out her job.
And probably making 100 and something thousand a year.
Right. Paying her salary, paying her pension, paying her 401k or whatever it is, tip program that we're putting money into.
And when she says that stuff, people are cheering and we want to spend this money to learn.
Right.
It's like the studies you were talking about, like rats having sex on cocaine. Like we need to know that.
We need to know what the endorphins that they're getting from that. Blah blah blah. No, we don't. Who cares? And we're spending money on that every single time. It's a check every single time, right out of our pockets into theirs. Not useful, not helpful.
That's unbelievable.
Get a job producing in the real world. Do that as your side job. Whatever.
So we'll wrap up with, we got two more here because we already covered. Zelensky talked about he only received 75 out of 177.
He should apply for welfare too.
That's a video, yeah. I mean, he's probably hurting over there. But, we're not going to go into that one. So one more video, one more screenshot. Here we go. Here's I pity right-wingers because they're so fucking boring.
I'm so glad I don't have to be like that. You should be glad you don't have to be like that. As you move forward in your...
Hang on.
I think I kind of pity right-wingers because they're so fucking boring, you know? Like, imagine not really having any curiosity about deeper and more expansive concepts. Everything's just like handed to them and they go, oh, okay, like my grandpappy didn't like black people, so I guess I don't either. Like, it's so fucking boring. Like, no real exploration of what it means to be a person or meeting other people outside of your sad, boring, hateful little bubble. I think it's kind of sad. It's a little pitiful. I'm so glad I don't have to be like that. You should be glad you don't have to be like that. As you move forward in your day, when these people are making you want to absolutely scream, and I get it because they make me want to absolutely scream, I want you to think to yourself, thank goodness I'm not that fucking boring. Because that would suck, right? It seems like it would suck.
We shoot guns, don't we? I mean, how are we boring?
To me, this is what I call the North Hills liberal.
Oh, yeah.
So in Raleigh, North Carolina, is a very nice area. It's North Hills. You got a lot of Democrat, virtual signaling.
Oh, yeah. We're enlightened.
Inner belt line, they're better than everybody else. Yeah. They've also got lots of resources.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, what are your first thoughts on that?
Just whenever I laugh. Yeah, I grew up in a redneck area in Wendell, North Carolina. And yet I played basketball, and generally I was the only white guy on a basketball court playing every day, day in and day out. And when I hear people talk about my prejudices or how I'm boring, I just laugh at them because they have no idea of our experiences. They have no idea what we do. They just want to put a generalization on us, and it's never fit their narrative, but they get away with it because they have the media as their propaganda wing.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you.
You're in the military, right?
Yeah. That's a melting pot in the military for sure. So here's the thing. Like, my first thought about this is, obviously, to me, she's a North Hills liberal, which is what I call her. And my other question is, how many right-wingers do you think this woman actually knows?
Probably none.
Probably none.
Yeah, probably none.
So in my opinion, she's forming, first off, she might consider us right-wingers. I don't know. Just based off the conversation today, she might.
I consider myself a right-winger. But that doesn't make me a Nazi or anything like that. It's just I believe that more things are on the right for me.
Well, I would consider myself more central personally, but I definitely lean right, I guess, compared to,
Compared to her?
Compared to her, totally.
Yeah.
So number one, I don't think she's around any right-wingers, number one. Or if she is, they're not real vocal about things.
Right.
Number two, she talks about, like, of course, this, like, Tom Hanks was on Saturday Night Live as a MAGA racist recently. Like, It's fucking disgusting.
Right.
Tom Hanks is a piece of shit for that.
He's probably on Epstein's list. We'll find out soon.
Yeah, I hope we're going to find out. I think he just got citizenship in Italy, if I'm not mistaken.
Better go.
So anyway, that kind of stuff is really disgusting, right? But I wonder how many, she's talking about racism and we don't have any curiosity about anything. This is probably someone that didn't have any curiosity about why the jab was being pushed so hard. Probably didn't have any curiosity about why the numbers were higher in some states than others.
As soon as she went out and got the jab, she posted a little picture and a little thing. I got my COVID-19 vaccine, because she's a proud virtue signaling liberal, man.
Right.
That was it.
She probably doesn't have any curiosity about the details prior to the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the things that inflame that situation. She probably doesn't have any curiosity about that. She probably doesn't have any curiosity about why gun owners love their weapons.
Right. No, listen, man, you're talking about people that have the depth of a skillet. That's all they have at this point. They literally don't understand all the intricacies that make our lives possible. They are in a vacuum. They are surrounded in an echo chamber. They listen to their same, friends that go to the same universities and have the same degree. And that's how my opinion is formed. That is more pathetic than anything I've ever seen.
Well, I was just going to say, I believe she formed this opinion from her echo chamber, not actually from people she knows.
Right.
What is Larry Elder, a right-winger racist?
Listen, when you go to parties and you're at a fundraiser or an event or a gala or whatever else, you know who they are.
Right.
And you're the one who avoids the topic of politics because the minute you get on it, all it's going to do is just trigger them, right? And I have done everything I can. Anytime I go to a formal event, I just avoid it. I'm like, nah, keep my head down. We'll talk about something else. They are the first ones to bring it up. Why? Because it's always about their feelings that matter. She thinks that she's always right, and she's going to come up to your face and make sure that you know she's right. And that's how it always begins.
Interesting.
There's no civility with these people.
Well, I find the left is the most intolerant.
Of course.
Even though they're the ones, generally speaking, driving around with the tolerant stuff.
Right.
They only want tolerance when they're not in control.
Their way.
Right.
Yeah. It's a one-way street of tolerance.
Right. They want to work together when they're not in control.
Correct.
If they're in control, Obama, elections have consequences.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a mandate. We all know it's a mandate.
Yeah. So
Trump's not a mandate.
And again, this is not a Republican versus Democrat conversation. It's a mindset.
Right.
And there should be tolerance.
But I wish their side would call more balls and strikes.
Right.
Not just keep the narrative and try to keep it in their court.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's work on that. And that's what my goal with this conversation. Number one, thank you for this. This has been therapeutic for me. It's like being able to talk about this stuff to vent.
Yeah.
Because I think that's good. I think we all need to vent. But I think we all need this has been
I'm going to send you a bill.
I don't know about that. But, and again, I'd be totally open to people that have differences. Yeah. I've got a friend of mine that's going to be coming in that I know we don't agree with a lot of things.
Right.
Or I've seen little comments he's made on stuff and things like that. And I'm okay with the difference of opinion, but let's get in here and talk about it.
Yeah, challenge him to it, you know, and tell him, look, I'm not looking for an argument. I am looking for an intellectual discussion on why you feel or why you believe this. What has made you believe this?
And maybe we do a deep dive into one thing.
Yep.
And we spend an hour talking about one thing to really get to the root of something.
Right.
I think that's a healthy conversation to have. All right, so we're basically coming off a break, and we want to go ahead and wrap up. Again, I'm going to say it, Paul, you were right. This took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take.
But it's good.
It was good, though.
Yeah.
It was therapy, and you're going to send me a bill, and that's cool. But go ahead and...
send Mustafa a bill, too.
Yeah, right. You want to go ahead and wrap it up?
Oh, I just appreciate being here. Appreciate talking to you about these things. I think going forward over the next 3.9 years as we, go into this administration, there's going to be a lot of hard conversations going forward. Hopefully this might broach something for some of our friends who are on the left of center, that they actually want to talk versus scream, throw rocks, riot, whatever it is that they like to do in 2020. I'm hoping that we can avoid that.
Right.
I would love to see somehow a bridge to unity. So that's what I really want to see.
Well, I hope you come back and do this again with me sometime.
Anytime, brother.
I'd love to talk about topics. And here's the thing. I would like to lead by example. We can talk about things going on with the Trump administration. We can talk about things we don't like, as well as things we like.
Yep.
So let's call some balls and strikes for the Trump administration.
Right.
I'll start right here. I don't know what the Gulf of America thing serves.
Right.
Maybe there's some high level thing I'm not thinking about. I don't hate it, but I don't know if it's necessary. And so I'll just start off by that one little thing. Like that's one example where I just don't know if it's obviously going to aggravate Mexico.
Right.
It's going to give liberals something to talk about, or Trump haters something to talk about.
Right.
And I don't really understand what the goal is. I'm sure that my opinion or guess is he's got some higher level 4D chess thing he's doing. But I just don't know that it was really necessary.
Right.
So, but that's, I'm open to the data.
It's him doing what he does. He likes to drop grenades.
Right.
I mean, he's not, he's a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the future, we'll talk about some wins, some losses, things like that, and then we'll continue to look at some of these things. But I would just say that my goal is let's continue to move humanity forward.
Yeah.
We should be able to talk about anything. We should be able to agree to disagree.
Right.
And we should always want what's best for humanity, not just the United States, although United States is the priority.
I was going to say, I feel like it leads the way.
Right.
I feel like the better we do, the better we are for the rest of the world. That's just my opinion about that.
Yep. But to me, it's priorities, right? It's like my kids are more important than you, Paul.
Yeah.
I understand. I don't mind telling you that.
Yeah,
and
no,
vice
I think
versa.
they're more important than me too.
Yeah. And so that doesn't mean I don't care about you as a human,
Yeah.
but my kids are the priority.
Yeah.
And so my country is the priority.
Right.
But I want what's best for the world. And I certainly don't want to be aiding and abetting bureaucrats that are doing bad things around the world with my money.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I think we're more generous when we're more prosperous at the same time.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Americans are historically very generous.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: if we're taxed 10% less,
We give less.
We're going to spend more and we're going to give more.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have more money,
That's right.
Most Americans are pretty giving. Getting off track here,
Yeah.
trying to wrap up.
It's a good way to wrap, though.
At the end of the day, it's like let's work towards being better humans.
Yeah.
Let's work towards agreeing to disagree, and let's lead the way.
Yeah, amen.
All right. Thanks for joining,
I appreciate
Paul.
it, brother. Thank
and
you.
thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast. We'll see you next time. And I've got two different guests coming up, like Paul, in the future that are going to be kind of doing the same things. They're going to be providing screenshots and videos that they want to talk about as well. So I'm really excited about that
Can't
because
wait.
I'd love to just come right off the cuff and have those original thoughts. So we'll see you next time. Thanks. Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.